there, everyone. Welcome back, one and all, to our latest Hot New Hip Hop live stream. My name is Gabriel Barras Nevares. I am a news writer here at Hot New Hip Hop, and I am joined by our wonderful features editor, Aaron. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. How you doing, bro?
Pretty good, pretty good. Excited to dive in today. As always, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We have this recent Drake live stream, which has been taking over the timeline. We have to celebrate the 53rd birthday of hip hop as well,
Sure.
and a lot of other topics. So please make sure to say hello to us in the chat and also check out the website to rate the new songs and albums that have been dropping this week. We want to hear what you guys think about those. And yeah, feel free to chime in with your thoughts as we discuss these topics, as we get into this, as we celebrate hip hop on this very important week. And yeah, let's just get straight into it. We wanted to highlight some new releases from this New Music Friday and throughout the week that we wanted to talk about. We'll just do like a quick rundown of some of the highlights and then we'll get into more personal picks. I wanted to mention the new Hit Boy albums, Hit Story 1 and 2, Success is a Dirty Word. These are some really versatile projects from Hit Boy. I feel like they're his most dramatic and like all encompassing as of late, so definitely check that out. The new Trippie Redd album, NDA, is also out today. We talked about this a little bit during one of our recent live streams. And unfortunately, it is very bloated, which is something that we hoped wouldn't be the case. But there are still some solid like rage highlights here and there. And if you're a Trippie fan, you'll definitely find some stuff to like. We have the new Molly Santana song, Live Your Life. We have the Bia Bianca Deluxe, which has been causing a lot of conversation due to a recent flare up with Cardi B. We have a new Internet Money album called We All We Needed, which is a nice casual helping of like mainstream plug for your diet. And we also wanted to shout out the new Rakim, Corrupt, and Mastakilla song Going Down, which is coming off of a forthcoming album. And yeah, I wanted to ask you, Aaron, what were some of your highlights as far as new releases of the week?
I mean, I've been really looking forward to this Nipsey Bino Rito album. The first time in like since his passing, I guess, that there has been like a solid body of work from Nipsey and the relationship that he's developed with Bino Rito, like since 2017 or so when they dropped their project. It's always been interesting because I felt like Bino Rito kind of allowed Nipsey to explore a different tone and a different atmosphere, and I did feel it was a very atmospheric project. A little bit more like I think a little bit more colder than I expected, but I think it had a lot of really cool moments, and I think it's just nice hearing Nipsey again. Obviously, there's some songs that we've heard in different iterations, including the joint with Cardi B,
Mhm.
and obviously Nipsey's vocals on I think it was Vulture's one.
Mhm.
Yeah, on that. So it was just interesting to kind of hear it in a different context. But obviously, that song's also been floating around for a few years now, as far as I could tell. But I think like just to honor somebody's legacy like Nipsey Hussle, who was very intentional with how he released music, and his estate also being very intentional with how we're receiving music. I wasn't disappointed. It was a pretty solid listen from front to back. I think I'm gonna have a couple of those joints running through for the weekend for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, as far as your comments about it being more atmospheric, I thought that this was a very like melodic and pretty like glossy approach from Nipsey for the most part. And I think that also like collaborators like James Fauntleroy really like add to that feeling. And I think that it was a really solid release. Shout out to, by the way, it's Lloyd on Instagram. He asked, "What about Jay-Z? Heard he's dropping an album." We've been hearing the same thing for months now, with the shows in mind. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But as far as other new releases this week, we also had the new Quavo song Trans, which is produced by Pharrell. We talked about Pharrell last week, Aaron. So, what are your thoughts about this new Quavo song?
It's interesting. I like the kind of fun direction that Pharrell's taking Quavo in right now, and I think it's kind of a direction that's really needed for Quavo at this. Not really like he needs it, but like at this point of his career, and if he's doing a new turn, I think some of these more funkier beats, it kind of gives me like I don't know if it does give me a little bit of the stir fry vibes, but not necessarily like it reminds me of fried. It's just I think it has a little pop to it that gives me the feeling I had when I first heard stir fry. So shout out to Quavo and Pharrell. I like what they're doing right now, and I'm excited to hear their joint project.
Yeah, for sure. I think sonically, I'm more interested than I am like performance wise. I wasn't too big of a fan of Quavo's melodic performance on it, but the track does indicate to me that there is going to be stronger material on this album. You were also a fan of this new Busta Rhymes, Lil Wayne, and Jay Dilla song "Talk Your Shit," which is coming off of Busta Rhymes and Dilla's "Diligence 2," which is coming out on August 21st. What did you think about this song?
I mean, I think it was cool. I think what Busta's been kind of doing with these releases over these past few weeks have given us like a little bit of a tease of what to expect from this project in like a interesting way. Because obviously with Spaz, he's using a bunch of different beats within that record. And honestly, personally, I just like the idea of hearing Lil Wayne on Jay Dilla production. I kind of just, even if it's not the greatest Wayne performance, I just like hearing him kind of approach these type of beats with those flows. And even with Busta, like he's such an animated rapper, and Wayne and Busta have had so many like great moments together. So to see them kind of reunite for such a special project in Busta's catalog, it didn't disappoint me. I'll say that.
Yeah, same here. I think Busta's delivery is on point as always, and it's kind of like exactly what I expected from this collaboration. Just his charisma over just like awesome Jay Dilla production, and I think that's going to be a really, really solid project. Another solid project we have to look forward to is Unlocked 2 from Denzel Curry and Kenneth Bloom, formerly known as Kenny Beats. They dropped their single for this, Difference, this week, featuring Yebba. The full album drops next week, and it's got features from JPEG Mafia and Westside Gunn as well across 9 tracks. And I thought that this single with Yebba was kind of surprising. I was expecting something a little bit more hard-hitting or aggressive, or I guess a little bit more showy from Denzel and Kenneth upon their return. I really, really love the first Unlocked, and I feel like this really pairs Denzel's more thoughtful and I guess like dexterous writing with Kenny Beats just sounding like much punchier. And I thought it was a really solid combination there. Really excited for that project. I don't know if you're a big like Denzel Curry fan, Aaron, but I'm pretty hyped.
No, it's definitely. I'm always excited to hear Denzel Curry and Denzel and Kenneth Bloom, great duo. And it's been a while since we've heard them together, so I'm excited to hear what a full body is like from them in 2026.
Yeah, definitely. And some other quick shout outs we wanted to mention. We do have this new Erykah Badu and Alchemist song, Witch Doctor, which comes off of their forthcoming album on August 28th. Apparently, they don't have an album title yet because it's titled, Sorry, we don't have an album title yet. I thought that this was appropriately mystical from Erykah Badu and The Alchemist. I think that the way the outro just kind of like peters off towards the end is a little bit long and makes the song a little bit of a drag, but I think the vibes are absolutely there. Love Erykah's performance on it, and I think it's going to be an even better highlight in the context of the full album listen. And finally, I would be remiss not to mention this new Open Mike Eagle and Kenny Siegel album, Doomed, which is an album about a relationship that ends in every possible universe. If you guys are looking for some more thoughtful, playful, and just kind of like melancholy writing and production, I could not recommend Doomed enough. Open Mike just continues to prove why he is such a subtle but also such a compelling lyricist. And I feel like his chemistry with Kenny Siegel on this project is really what sets it apart from like previous projects that he's put out, like Neighborhood Gods Unlimited. And it just seems like these longtime friends have been waiting for a long time to finally, come together on a full track list. And it makes for a really, really compelling, but also like whimsical listen despite the subject matter. So would definitely recommend that for sure. And yeah, I think that it's going to be a really solid year for new releases moving forward. We've gotten some really great stuff so far, and there's still a lot of other great stuff to look forward to. I think that one of the newer releases this year that has caused a lot of controversy, not for its music, but for its presentation into the world, has been this new Kanye West album, Bully, because Kanye West has been doing all of these concerts, whether it's in the US or overseas in Europe. And it's been generating a lot of conversation. We have talked about the Kanye shows before, but I wanted to ask you, Aaron, now that we are a little bit more into this process for him and into this rollout for him, does he seem to be in a better place compared to the volatility that he might have displayed in previous years?
Yeah, but I also was kind of thinking about, I'm like, as somebody who's like seen Kanye perform on several times over the course of his career, for recent years, I always appreciated him kind of going on those long-winded rants. I feel like they're a little bit dangerous for him to be doing these days. So I am glad he's not doing them. But I think he's definitely working towards rebuilding whatever he broke before, and it's kind of nice to see him committing to that. Because if you had asked me like 3, 4 months ago, I would have thought Kanye would have said something outrageous already. So it's cool to see that he's like kind of just giving fans exactly what they want, which is like we want to hear the hits. We want to hear Kanye perform all the music that we grew up on and that has meant the world to us for all these years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the track list is like really, really nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a long track list as well. And he really just kind of like burns through his performances. Like you were talking about, like no breaks, no rants in between. It definitely seems a little bit more sustainable as far as just like his public image and the way that he has been expressing himself and sharing himself with fans as of late. I just think that what this run has proven is that yes, he's going to continue to find success, and it's been like hugely commercially successful, like breaking records, breaking attendance records, things like that. But he will always kind of have this shadow follow him
Yeah.
as far as like the anti-Semitism and other bigotries and controversies and things like that. Mostly because I feel like he hasn't responded to it as directly as he like started it. You know what I mean? Like I think that he would have to make some sort of statement or release music that is a bit more politically charged or be a little bit more proactive as far as like making his moral and ethical stances clear, because it seems like that is what some fans would like to see. I just don't think that it is just kind of like, I don't see it as this being kind of like a fix for the controversies that Kanye has faced in the past. I think it shows that he is still one of the biggest artists on the planet. But at the end of the day, like for as much success as there could be, I think that there's always going to be a little bit of pushback. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later on in the show. But I think that it's also representing itself as far as like the shows are not really like a hot button of conversation as they might have been last year,
No, sure.
just because the success has been very sustained and people have just kind of accepted it as it is at this point.
No, but I do agree with what you said earlier. Like he has not done enough to repair the damage that he's done, and that will be a shadow that follows him. I think right now he's actually just trying to not like poke the bear, so to speak. But I think he's like, I don't think he's really handling. Don't think he has been handling this the best way, but I do think he's like not, at least not trying to make it worse right now, which for Kanye is an improvement.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think that his presence, but also his silence, like him doing all these shows, but not really like, you know, um, feeding into the narratives, feeding into the persecution, like all that. I think that that has been very beneficial for him at the end of the day, kind of establishing a baseline for himself. And I think that it just goes to show that like for so many of these legends, like the way that they put themselves out there into the world, like regardless of what they have gone through, like they're always going to find that audience. And I feel like this live run for Ye has been like just really interesting to see for that reason. And he's got a couple of shows left in New Orleans, Chicago, Kazakhstan, and Indonesia. And people have been asking a lot about just kind of like how Kanye is putting himself out there, how he is maintaining relevance, how he is building a name for himself. And one rapper that really has not struggled at all to do this year has been Drake, because Drake, not only did he have like his performances last year to connect with fans, but also like the Iceman trilogy, all of the beef stuff. And he recently gave us a pretty fun live stream for Steak's 9th anniversary, where he gave away like somewhere close to $1 million. He had the 20v1 as well. And there's been a lot of conversations about whether or not it's cringy, whether or not it's corny, and just kind of like the public perception of Drake entering this streaming landscape. Aaron, what do you think is interesting or unique about Drake's sort of like streaming pivot, considering not just how he's used live streams in the past, but just kind of like all the noise around him these days?
I mean, I think he's been doing like I've noticed that he's like before the Iceman live streams and stuff like that. Like I feel like he's done he's made a much more concerted effort to integrate with the streamers, and I think that's like one thing about Drake musically is that he's always tried to like appeal to the younger audience, despite the fact that he's like you know, he's an artist for millennials at the end. Not for millennials, but like it is millennials that brought him up in the early stages of
Mhm.
his career and who, you know, hold a lot of the old catalog close to his heart. I think just with this like 20v1 specifically, I thought it was like kind of weird, but also very funny. I think Drake's going down a really weird, unhinged path. Maybe not in like a bad way, like in a Kanye kind of unhinged way, but like just in a way where he's like, I don't know. I would never expect to see the man bark at a goth woman on a live stream. That was not on my 2026 bingo card. But Drake knows how to make a viral moment, and it's like if he's not making a viral moment off of Instagram and you know creating music that's basically made to caption your music, like he's at least like you know trying to make himself known within the streaming space and. Yeah, I think it's been very weird, a little bit jarring, but I think overall very very entertaining. You know.
For sure, and very on brand for Drake at the end of the day, you know, because through multiple live streams in the past, not just like of his own, but also collaborations with XUC and Aiden Ross, we have seen his personality shine through. We have seen him just like be a funny guy. We have seen him like send these like random little jabs and shots. Like you mentioned the Rock Nation subpoenas. He was talking about like the pen isn't dry in response to some of his beefs and some people calling him out. And I think that it makes for a bit of a this is what has always kind of like been maybe not an issue but just like a reality for me with Drake is that he has so many different sides to him that it makes it hard for me to take any one of them individually super seriously because to hear him to see him do content like this and just kind of like be playful and fun loving like this and then turn around and just like absolutely decimate UMG and Kendrick and Jay-Z and then all these people that were working against him and like I think it's just a bit of a disconnect that I think is definitely what Drake has always been going for throughout his career in one way or another. He has always seen himself as just like a jack of all trades, as somebody that can do a little bit of everything, and his fame and his scale makes him transition into this like streaming era and be able to do things like these big events without really missing a beat and without really losing any of his respect, or at least like the respect that he had. Because I think that a lot of people like hating on this stream are people that have always been like criticizing Drake for being like effeminate or being like a corny like old guy trying to still stay hip with the youth. And so I think that in that sort of like, especially with his sort of like, I still laugh whenever he makes his subliminals and digs like rhyme, like he did with the
His
penitent
nursery rhymes.
yeah, he just gave a whole like 2 bars or something there, and I'm like, okay, like
That's how I feel about his Instagram captions. I'm like, bro, like save it for the booth.
yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that he did save it for the booth. I wish he would have kept more of it, but that's what it is. And I think that with this conversation about Drake, it's also opened up this wider conversation about like rappers entering the streaming world. We just saw like Blueface pulling in like 45K per stream or something like that. And we have like other examples, like all of the collaborations that Kai Cenat has done, or Sanat, sorry, has done throughout his career. Black Boy Max being not just a streamer but an artist as well. DDG occupying a similar space. What do you think is different about Drake's approach to kind of like streaming and the conversation that he has been able to build around these things in comparison to other artists that are still finding success in the space, but maybe with not the same like notoriety?
Well, I think one of them is like scarcity. It's not like we're seeing Drake on stream every night. Like he's not like posting on a story like "Yo, live stream, link below" type thing. So I think that kind of helps. I also think the other thing that helps is like not only the people he's collaborating with because they are like just like known streamers, but the fact that there is a brand backing him. Like I think it's like pretty obvious that like when he does these streams, they're not like just for the Drake brand, they are for the Steak brand. And I think that helps him differentiate because then it kind of looks more like a partnership instead of when it's like someone like Blueface who's like obviously making bank off of this. He's like, I don't, not to say he said this, but I'm saying like for any artist who's seeing a really massive amount of revenue coming from streaming, at a certain point you're just going to be like this rap stuff, this music stuff probably isn't paying my bills in the same same type of way. Whereas like with Drake, I don't think the money is like really an issue for him. You know what I mean? And also like it's never really music related. I think it's always the like, the nursery stuff that you mentioned, like just him like kind of taking jabs at people. Always a little. It's just a little weird, just because I'm like you're on live stream, but I'm like I get it. It gets the people going. You gotta like, we're talking about it right now. It's obviously effective.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that that's just like always the Drake effect of things. Shout out to OVO Affiliated on Instagram who asks, so what's your favorite Drake song? I'm a big If You're Reading This fan personally, so I would probably say Company or No Tellin' would be my favorites. What about you, Aaron?
Honestly, yo, I might actually have to say it's like I mean, I think one of my favorite joints, and I say this just because like still to this day I love it, is Ransom with him and Wayne from back in the day, like way back in the day. But if I were to pick like a post major label signing song, might have to say Know Yourself, just because that's always a banger. Yeah, honestly, I might go Know Yourself. I think that one's like to this day, anytime I run it, I'm like, yup, this is the one.
Super cathartic beat switch on there, just like one of the best moments on If You're Reading This, and in Drake's whole catalog for sure.
Yeah, and that joint just goes off so well live. Like I'm like, I remember like the first time I saw him perform that song live, I was like, this is as great as it is in my headphones, you know?
Yeah, that's always a great feeling.
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys think about this Drake combo at large down in the comments. We'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. And I wanted to bring up something that you mentioned right now, Aaron, which is that Blueface, he didn't say anything. This is just us like speculating, but Blueface might be thinking that music is not as profitable as streaming and maybe making that sort of pivot. I think that is an important, question to ask ourselves during this, because we've had so many conversations about like how difficult it is for artists to break into, a music space nowadays and to sustain success, to actually get like solid revenue from their art. And I think that there have been a lot of artists that have been towing the line between like merging those two worlds, like Blackboy Max, doing like the In the Booth sessions and things like that. Um, but I think that now there's much more of a clear delineation of like I make music and I also stream.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't seem as like united as it may have been at one point. And in a lot of cases, I feel like the music and the tracks that are going viral, like they feed the live streams and they feed what's going on more than the other way around. And I think that that's just been a really interesting dynamic. We can also look at somebody like Soulja Boy that has been really big in streaming and like feuding with streamers these days. And there's been questions about whether or not it's just kind of like a talent gap as well. Like you're more entertaining as a streamer than you are a musician. But these are questions that, definitely don't solely apply to hip hop. It's just because hip hop, culturally, Black culture is moving and driving everything. I feel like that is just kind of like the music genre that has been embodied in this world like as much as it has. But I think that is a really important distinction you made about just kind of like what artists are considering as far as what is going to be the most profitable and the best outcome for them. Shout out to the real Ace T on Instagram, who says, can we talk about the lack of collaboration in the youth of hip hop? I think that's a great point. I think that as far as the mainstream, some artists might be more like drawn against each other, but there are a lot of like underground collectives that, there's like a dozen rappers that come up at the same time and support each other and collaborate. So it depends on where you're looking, I feel like.
No, for sure. I did want to just go back to your point, because like I think the other thing about streaming as well is like, in terms of like just trying to connect with your audience, I do think it's still a very effective way, as much as like an Instagram live would be. I was checking, saw that comment Doja Cat made this week about Tyga, and it's like someone of Doja Cat's stature certainly does not need to make money off of streaming, but I think with how much of a pretty tight relationship she has with the fan base, in those gap times where she's not touring, where she's not releasing an album, I feel like that's like a great way to just make sure that connection still exists, instead of keeping your fans like, without any content or without any music, and like just keeping them in the loop with stuff too.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think that for a lot of people, like they are going to look at that as a primary audience to hit, and also as just like one of the best ways in which they can actually reach that audience. And for somebody like, and for Drake, who is the biggest rapper in the world, this just kind of, this is like second nature at the end of the day. Like he embodies the attention economy that streaming is already built on, and I feel like that's what's made like a really great transition for him when he wants to do these events. I think it's really like I like that he does them as events. It's not just like streaming, like you mentioned, like every week or every day. Like he really makes a big deal out of it, and I think that it's a creative way for fans to get like a little bit closer to artists. But it's also important to note that Drake is one of the few artists that could do something like this that gets as much flack as it does for being corny or cringy or whatever, and really not miss a beat and be able to drop tomorrow and still go number one and to still be respected as a lyricist and all these things and yada yada. So I think that it's just like a really interesting point right now that shows the very unique time that we're living in hip hop history that I think a lot of people would not have expected, to be at this point. And speaking of hip hop history, we celebrated the 53rd birthday of hip hop earlier this week when DJ Kool Herc spun some records in the Bronx and really gave birth to this wonderful genre and culture and art form that we all love. And we wanted to look back on this in a little bit more of a free form way. There's obviously a lot of different things we could talk about, and we are going to look back on some hip hop anniversaries this week as well. But to just kind of get the conversation rolling, Aaron, I wanted to ask you if you could tell me the story of how you got into hip hop.
I mean, I think there were different points, but I do remember like my first like real hip hop memory. I think I was like I forgot how old I was, probably like 6, 7, around that age. It was the Columbia House era where they were sending CDs to people's houses. I don't know how long that went on for, or how long that service went on for, but definitely got a lot of great music out of that. But I went to my cousin's house for Thanksgiving, and he had the W by Wu Tang. And then you had Stankonia by Outkast, which is still like one of my favorite projects to this day. And then you had the Bow Wow first album. And that kind of like I think opened the gates for a lot of things. I think like that kind of later down the line, exploring like a lot of 80s stuff, NWA for sure. Weirdly enough, I think like a group like Rage Against the Machine really helped shape some of my political philosophy surrounding hip hop as well. And yeah, I feel like that was like really kind of the point that like really opened my eyes to hip hop, and then like growing up in like the early 2000s and stuff, you're also getting exposed to like a lot of like the radio hits that we consider classics today, whether it's like I don't know, like 50 Cent, like can't like in the like I remember when In the Club came like first came, I was like, I was like, I don't know, like 7 or 8, and I'm like, this is so undeniably good. Like you can't deny it. But then like also like getting exposed to like people like Eminem as well, and like even DMX to maybe a lesser degree at the time. But like yeah, it was like I think those artists really helped shape what I loved about rap, and like I think a lot of times I think when like I need inspiration, I kind of have to tap into the child in me, the inner child, and like go back to some of those projects, especially like a project like Stankonia, and like how much that like blew my mind at the time. You know what I mean? How about you? Like, what was what brought you to this place that we're at right now?
So there's a couple similar to you. There are like different phases. I think that I just I'm a writer at heart, so I was interested in like lyrics and hearing music that emphasized lyrics more. So like I was just like casually listening to hip hop when I was growing up. So like late 2000s. So like Kanye, Jay, Eminem, Wayne, Drake, 50, all that stuff. And I had a particular Eminem phase because I just thought that he was like the best like writer, and I definitely don't agree with that now. But I remember the origin story for me where it really really like clicked was I remember I was at the beach with my family and I had my headphones in and I was listening to Roman's Revenge by Nicki Minaj featuring Eminem. And the chorus on that song goes, "Ruh, Ruh, like a dungeon dragon, ruh, ruh, like a dungeon dragon. And my uncle was passing by me, and he asked me like, "Are you listening to A Tribe Called Quest?" Like surprised, like, "Why are you listening to that?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm listening to Nicki Minaj and Eminem. Why?" Like, and he was like, "Oh, so you haven't heard Scenario?" And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. And when we went back to the car, he put on Scenario for me, where Busta Rhymes, one of the most legendary feature verses of all time, he goes rah rah like a dungeon dragon. And to me, like that was not only that I loved the song, like I loved Scenario. Low End Theory is like one of those essential hip hop albums for me. So not only did I get into this new side of hip hop that I wasn't really privy to, because I heard about like Biggie and Tupac and things like that, but Tribe, I guess, was like back then just a little bit outside of like what was being exposed to me. And finding that and finding just kind of like the sampling and the wholesomeness of it all, like very soulful, and I think that, or very soul, heartening, I should say. And to me, it was just like that excitement of the historical connection of, I'm rapping something that decades before, like it was something else, and there's a history there and there's a lineage there, that I thought was just like really interesting. And from there, like I just started listening to hip hop more. And I think by the time I really started, by the time I became like a big Tyler the Creator fan, is when I started to really consume like hip hop media more and get into the history and all these things as an outsider. And it just goes to show that there have been, these wildly different examples of like more of like a personal anecdote and just like the bodies of work that defined us. Like, I just think that looking back at how hip hop has evolved and how it's changed, all the eras, I think it's just really amazing how so many different people can come together for so many different reasons, but hopefully end up in a similar spot, which is
Hmm.
to, defend and protect hip hop culture, whether you are in the Black community, whether you are an outsider, like hopefully. And it's been very difficult for people to have that priority in mind clearly in recent years. So I think always important to just stretch back to that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like another factor I think about a lot is like just the community aspect of hip hop, and not just like on the broader scale of like these amazing classics that we love, but like even within your local community or like neighboring communities or wherever it may be, and like seeing artists, seeing graffiti writers, seeing break dancers, like I feel like just all those pillars all together, it builds something that I think is really beautiful in what we see today. Because like even for me growing up, like hip hop was like how I found community. You know what I mean? Like that's like I've met some of my best friends I met through connecting through hip hop, and I think I do believe that like local scenes and things of that nature like need all the support wherever you are in the world, because it's like this hip hop doesn't survive if we're not like actively in it. You know what I mean? Not all of us could be in these hot spots where all these great artists are from, and like sometimes we're witnessing great artists develop right in front of our eyes too.
Yeah, absolutely. That emphasis on community is paramount. I think that it is as important today as it was when DJ Kool Herc, played at that party. I think that there are still some things in contemporary hip hop that are trying to emphasize that. Like Tyler recently did like the $5 show in Atlanta where it was like no phones, like just everybody being there, and a lot of great reviews from it. There have been just kind of like, there's also been a lot of stuff kind of like lost to history in a way, like with this being like such a long history. Like we were looking at the anniversary of Run DMC's It's Like That for our like anniversary segment this week, and there are like conflicting reports on whether or not the single came out in August or it came out in March of the following year. And I think it just goes to show that there is going to be a lot of stuff that we're not going to be able to witness, or we're not going to be able to catch up on as history progresses. But I think that it, like you mentioned, like there are so many local scenes that also like really need that recognition. They need that spotlight, and they find that spotlight through community and through just like being together on that local level. And I think that with the conversation around mainstream hip hop these days and its deviations, and it's like how pop has kind of like, gentrified it to a degree and taken from it, I think that it's always important to talk about that these errors in hip hop have always existed. There's always been fear. There's always been outside systemic forces kind of like affecting the art form from outside and from within. And so it's always important for us to remember that this is not like a new fight. This is just like one chapter in a much larger story. And I think that that would help folks not be as like reactionary or incendiary when they're talking about some of the issues plaguing hip hop today.
No, for sure. It's like, um, it's as old as it is. It's also a very young genre, and it's a genre that has been really at the center of the technological evolutions that we've seen in the past, like 20, 25 years at this point, whether it's like Napster, whether it's the rise of streaming, whether it's the mixtape era that, in my opinion, probably played just as much of a role as Napster in creating the streaming economy, not live streaming, but like streaming music economy today, which is unfortunate because we're missing a lot of great mixtapes on these platforms as a result. But the hip hop is like it's just grown so fast within a short window of time, and I think it's one of those art forms that has managed to dodge some of the outcomes of like previous black genres of music, like jazz or rock and roll, which have been gentrified to certain degrees, and we're like seeing it get reclaimed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's just a lot of importance in recognizing that it does hold a very unique space that continues to be threatened and continues to be used like against the same community it's supposed to be for. But we continue to trudge on. We continue to celebrate hip hop, and in light of hip hop's 51st birthday, we also had a couple of lists to talk about. You guys know we love reacting to lists. So let us know what you guys think about hip hop's 53rd birthday. Any reflections or things like that you guys may have. We would love to hear your stories as well. And we wanted to get into to just kind of like reflect on the history. We wanted to get into a couple of lists by Complex that they updated as of late. These include the top 100 hottest rappers updated in August and the 100 best beats of all time. So the hottest rappers one is like a right now conversation, beats is all time. And I want to run down this top 10 hottest rappers for you, or list for you, Aaron, and let me know what you think. So at 10, we have Travis Scott. At 9, we have Ken Carson. At 8, we have Young Miami. Then is Future. Then we have J. Cole. Number 5 is Cardi. 4 is YoungBoy. 3 is Don Toliver. 2 is Jay-Z. And 1, to very few people's surprise, is Drake. Do you think they got it right?
Here's the thing. I read what their like the metric was before, like after I read actually no, I read it after I read the list. So I was very confused when I first read the list. And then I read it after and I was like, I guess this makes sense. Because this is not really like a list about like no disrespect to anybody, but this isn't a list about talent. Like this is not a list about who makes better music or anything anything like that. It's basically just like who got the motion right now. Honestly, I don't like. I think sure, Young Miami, but I think placing her at number 8 might be a little odd. I know she got like one of the hottest songs out right now, but it's. I feel like we don't hear enough from her. I know they're like within a 6-month window, so I thought Young Miami was a little bit of an odd inclusion. Ken Carson obviously has all the kids lit, so that's not necessarily for me to judge. Outside of that. Honestly, I don't. I maybe this might be a hot take. I'd probably put even Don Toliver above Jay-Z right now, just because I'm like we don't got no music from Jay-Z except for that one verse, and Don Toliver's been having an incredibly lit year, and his concert was pretty amazing when I saw it.
Yeah, I think on a musical front, for sure. Like, I don't think there's any reason to put Don below Jay-Z. Jay, I think, takes the crown just because of the engagement around his name and just like hottest on the timeline, I guess. And as far as the discussions around him and stuff, if he does drop an album, I think that would probably, change. It would make his number 2 spot a bit more warranted. Shout out to Oaya Mafanya, who says Young Miami hits insanely on mute. A couple of trash emojis. Aw. And I think that beyond that, I think YoungBoy and Cardi, definitely makes sense. I'm surprised that Cardi didn't fall off at least a little bit more, because it's been relatively quiet since music. But I guess he did recently have a couple of features for some like hot Atlanta rappers. Cole, who they had named the hottest earlier this year, fell by like 5 slots, which I thought was very interesting. I think that's just more of a reflection of Cole just kind of like sticking to himself and not really wanting to like get into the noise of everything. And I think it's a warranted placement on the list. Future, I think a lot of people were disappointed by Real Me, so that makes sense. And Travis, I don't know why he's on here apart from him just being like a super popular person, and I guess the Odyssey stuff.
I'm about to say.
But I thought it was a solid list. Like you mentioned, it's not really based on like talent or like music that they dropped this year or anything like that. But I think that it's just a little bit it's just interesting to see where kind of like they were talking about like the metrics specifically. I think a lot of people just approach these lists from very different points of view, which makes it hard to have these discussions. Shout out to OVO affiliated again, who says, I think Trav should be way higher. Number 10 for Travis is a joke. I don't feel that way, but I get why you would, just because of how big he is. And especially when you look at some of the other names that were put outside of the top 100. Like going back to that Kanye conversation, Ye was at 11, which I thought was interesting, even with like all the shows and Bully and all that. They had Phoenix flexing at 18, which to me is interesting because it shows that hottest does not have to be for like a good reason.
Yeah, Tiger at 100 too, so I don't.
Fair. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But I think that, but yeah, I think that's interesting. Ti at 21 was also interesting to see like an older name on the list and still remain relevant with a new album and all the stuff he's done this year, which has been great. Cardi B at 30, I would have expected to be a little bit higher with the new like single buzz, and just because she's like always in the, she's always in conversation. Pooh Shiesty and YG at 33 and 34, fresh off of new albums, but I feel like people are mostly talking about like their off the court stuff more than anything. Especially in Pooh Shiesty's case, because I feel like YG, the reception we did see to the album was like not super positive. And I thought Rocky was interesting at 35 because A$AP Rocky like just wrapped up his North American tour and just dropped an album.
Yeah, that's a little surprised that.
I kind of raised my eyebrow at that as well. And there were a couple of other eyebrow raising moments on the 100 best beats list, which I'll run down the top 10 real quick. Actually, top 10 is a lot of the usual suspects. They have The Message at number 1, Shook One's Part 2 at 2, Still Dre at 3, Cream at 4, They Reminisce Over You at 5, Paid in Full at 6, Audio 2 Top Billin' at 7, Clips Grindin' at 8, Nas New York State of Mind at 9, and then Nothing But a G-Tang at number 10. Not really super different from many other like best beats lists that we've seen. I do like that Audio 2 shout out though. I will say.
For sure.
It's a very influential beat.
No, for sure. Is this an updated list or is this a new list that they put out?
I believe it's probably updated from the last time they did it, but the published date shows like this week. So I think it's like a more fresh look. Because for example, I don't think Grindin' would have been as high as it is a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Which I think, I don't mind that track being in the top 10. Maybe I would have had a little bit lower, but it goes to show that the perceptions of these beats are also changing a lot.
I think in 2026, like Grindin' getting their top 10, I feel like it's just an overdue look. I think when I look at this top 10, I'm like, it's a pretty, as you said, it's like a pretty safe list, all things considered. I mean, Shook Ones to me is still like very, very goated as a beat.
For sure.
But I do respect the fact that there's the Message up there at number 1. However, I probably personally would have dropped that down to maybe like 3 or 4 because I just love those other beats a little bit.
Yeah, I feel you, especially with Shook One's Part 2. Shout out to where did this go? Oh no! Shout out to the real Ace T on Instagram again, who said we need more praise for Damo Genesis. Yes, we do. Damo has consistently been putting out great music since Odd Future. Please tap into Damo.
He's still putting out great music.
Yeah, and it always has been one of the most consistent spitters out of Odd Future. I also wanted to shout out some notable inclusions on the list because I feel like there was honestly not a lot of variety on the list as far as like what kinds of beats were included and the eras and the regions and things like that. Like the highest like contemporary inclusions or recent quote unquote inclusions on the list were Can't Tell Me Nothing and Sicko Mode being in the top 20. I thought that Don't Like by Chief Keef was grossly underrated at 100. And then they had like Worst Behavior, which I don't even think is one of the best Drake beats. They had a lot of Kanye too,
I
which
don't even
is
think the best Drake beat on
unsurprising.
that album.
Agreed. No, for sure, for sure. And they had like a Millie, Get Your Freak On, like some interesting inclusions, but for the most part, I felt like it was a lot of like 80s, 90s worship, and as warranted, you know, because these are like the beats of these are the foundation, right? But I think that they did lose an opportunity to make some riskier picks and to shout
Mm.
out like some different styles of hip hop across it. I think it would always be interesting to break these lists down by like genre or era or something like that. Um, but yeah, I think it was still like a pretty solid list. Anything that you thought was like left out of that top 10 that you were like, how is this not
Out of
here?
the top 10, not like I really wasn't mad when I looked at the top 10. I was like, this is a pretty safe list. I think the one thing, and this is like just mainly a personal choice because I'm obsessed with the song still, is Slow Motion by Juvenile. I love that, and I
Mm,
would love to see that beat get a little bit more love just in general than it does because I feel like we don't hear enough praise for that song. Like they had Back That Ass Up on there, and just like that song is amazing, and obviously the way it's like transcended since its release deserves that place. But Slow Motion, in my opinion, should have had some sort of love, even if it was an honorable mention.
yeah, I feel you. I feel you. But yeah, it's always, you know, fun to kind of like look back at hip hop history, look back at, you know, the best beats, the best rappers, and just kind of like see what has brought us to this point and see what continues to go up and down in these rankings. But a lot of other artists are continuing to write their own stories and their own history. And we recently wanted to recap some new podcasts from NBA YoungBoy and Megan Thee Stallion because they recently had a lot to talk about during these conversations. Young Boy with Funny Marco, Megan Thee Stallion on Michelle Obama's podcast. And I wanted to ask you, Aaron, like, what were some of your takeaways starting with the Young Boy interview?
I mean, YoungBoy was interesting. I didn't think Funny Marco was going to get as insightful of an interview from him, and I feel like it was really cool to hear him like just speak his piece, and he seems a little bit more calm than he was on his live stream shortly thereafter. But the fact that he's living in South Korea, out of all places, and has no intention of moving back to the United States, I think that is, I mean, probably a great move for him. But I think we've talked about how Doughboy, it was Doughboy, right? That
Mm-hmm.
said he wasn't. He was like beefing everybody, but not even in the country. But I do think it's great for him because I think we've seen a lot of artists, like even with thinking about Nipsey, like be in their neighborhood and like seeing them die in their neighborhood as well, or find themselves in some sort of conflict. So I think it's nice that he's found some peace elsewhere. But obviously, like I think the bigger news beyond that is the fact that he's planning on essentially retiring from music, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
said one or two more albums in the cut and one tour left, and obviously he mentioned that he has health issues related to his heart, and we're keeping him in our prayers. Hopefully that he sees himself recover from that, however that may be. But the fact that one of the most prolific young artists of today has decided that there's like a cap on his output was kind of a shock to me.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely for me as well, because I think that YoungBoy has always like prided himself in connecting with his fans so closely, and I think that in that sense, it might be. I think he's realized that his career is more sustainable than people gave him credit for. Because I think that for a couple of years now, YoungBoy has not changed his sound that much. He has not dropped like particularly unique music compared to his previous work. And I think that he has seen that he just has a very loyal fan base that is going to be there for that and is going to support him no matter what. And he's cornered a market. This sounds kind of like weird to say, but he's kind of a corner market that nobody else has been able to do as fully. So I feel like this might have given him the confidence to focus on his life more, focus on his well-being, which I think is, always like should be priority number one. It is sad that it is now working into like his perception in the hip hop world and in his beefs and stuff like that, like what you mentioned with Doughboy. Because I do think that at the end of the day, for somebody who has had a career as turbulent as YoungBoy, being away from things that put him at risk, or things that are just like not good energies for him to be around, I think is a great thing at the end of the day. And I think as far as the energy, that's something that Megan also talked about a lot about in her interview, because the main takeaway for me with Megan Thee Stallion, beyond her saying that Act 3 is on the way, she's going to bring Tina Snow back, all these things. To me, the main takeaway was that she sounds like someone who has been doing what she's passionate about. She has been doing what she loves. She has been doing what she bonded with her family over. And it has now led to this like intense level of fame that is making it hard for her to stay connected to that sort of side of herself. Because she talked a lot about her Houston upbringing, her relationship with her parents' relationship with music, starting hip hop at a very, very young age, her mother rapping as well. And to me, it just kind of like connected a lot of the dots in terms of Megan's journey over the past few years of really emphasizing her mental health and emphasizing her wellness after the Tory Lane situation and all that. And I think that it shows that you can sometimes like lose a bit of passion for the things that you do. And when you are such a public person, it can be hard to like retain your ownership and your agency of those emotions. But I think that by whenever she does pop out, she does always talk about these things, even if some people and haters are like tired of it or think that she's repeating herself. I think that it's all still super relevant because it is speaking to that very same process. And I hope that we get even more of that personal touch on Act 3.
No, for sure. I'm just honestly, I love Meg, but I'm really excited to see her bring Tina Snow to this new audience. Like, I think that's gonna be really fun because I love Meg when she's in her like super rapping bag. Like when she's more of her like pop oriented stuff, it doesn't resonate with me in the same way. But like when she channels the spirit of Pimp C, so to speak, I really do love that. And like even as we were talking about lineage before, and just like hip hop lineage specifically, like having her as like a descendant of someone like Pimp C and like obviously UGK that we were celebrating last week. It's nice to see her kind of channel that aura that we all fell in love with when she first came out, right?
For sure. And I think that with just like all the stuff that she has gone through and all the things that she's been processing over the past couple of years, I think that with this interview, it was like one of her most explicit attempts yet to really kind of like try to understand it in the public eye, not from like a personal perspective, but like her history and her story and just kind of like what fans are expecting from her as well. Because I think that she talked about bringing Tina Snow back for newer fans. Like it's not just like bringing the personality back for nostalgia. It's to reintroduce this character and to reintroduce some of the, not maybe reintroduce, but like introduce hopefully some like personal themes. She said she has some features that are going to really surprise people as well. And I'm excited for that because I think that she also has like a great capacity to be a versatile artist and to work with a lot of different modes, even if I agree with you that, I really love her like in her rapping bag. But she also has some like really great crossover potential because one of our hip hop anniversary pieces this week is this Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj collab, Hot Girl Summer, with Ty Dolla $ign, which came out 7 years ago. And this is not only weird to look back on because of Nicki and Megan's beef, but also like this is a melody that had been stuck in my head when it came out, and I had kind of forgotten about it in the years since. But I started listening to it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm right back in." I don't know if you had like a similar experience, but to me, that was.
I feel like it's just like culturally stood out to me in a lot of ways because I think just the term "hot girl summer" is just like in my vocabulary now. Like I was talking to one of my homegirls and like. I think I said Hot Girl Summer out of nowhere. And like, it was a very cool breakout song for Meg. I think at the time I was a little bit, I wouldn't say confused, but I was just kind of at that moment where I was like, this is her pop percent. And I'm like, I might, whatever she does next might not be for me. You know what I mean? I think I have that with a lot of artists who like, you kind of watch them bubble up and then you see them have their breakout moment and you're like, the breakout moment's amazing. But you also know that the artist that you kind of fell in love with during their development isn't something you might get back again in the future. But man, it's a hot girl summer. Shout out to Meg.
Yeah, shout out to Meg and shout out to Nicki as well because Nicki dropped Queen 8 years ago, which is wild that it's been 8 years since 2018. Yeah. Insane. And I think that looking back, this was like definitely a very like glossy album for Nicki. I feel like it wasn't as like bright or as like aggressive as some of her previous stuff was. Not aggressive. That's the wrong way to put it. It was not as like authoritative, I guess.
Mm.
There are still some tracks like Chun Li that go absolutely hard, and the album has grown on me since it came out for sure. I think that it shows how like when you listen back to Pink Friday 2 as well, like
Mm.
it's a lot of like what she's trying to do on Queen as far as like presenting this very glamorous but also like confrontational and powerful image, and I feel like she did that really well. You also wanted to shout out the not the new Party Next Door's P3,
Yo, is that
which came
PND?
out 10 years ago.
That's crazy. That's actually like, I feel like we're running through these anniversaries, and I'm like, God damn, I can't believe it's been that long. But yeah, man, like the third installment in the self-titled series for PND. Maybe not my favorite out of all the albums he's released, but definitely had a chokehold on me the summer it did drop. Because it was also the same summer as Views, so it's like a lot of like that same OVO vibes were going on that summer. So big up PND.
Toronto was eating so much in 2016, so much.
Crazy, crazy.
Yeah, Ray Shremmerd fans were also eating in 2016 because Shrem Life 2, which came out 10 years ago, has still some of their best songs to date. Like I think Swang is still one of my favorite songs from that era because I just have so many good memories of it, like with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you got a chance to revisit for the discussion, but just like a really awesome album to look back on. As far as like the moment it created, Ray
Nah,
Shremmer did not like stick around as much, but yeah.
I mean, I think that was like pinnacle Ray Shremmerd, and it's like sometimes you have a sophomore album and you have one that's as successful as the first Shrug Life, because with as many hits as it did have on that, and I think they did such a great job. Like Black Beatles, um, like still such a big moment. Swang, as you mentioned, Look a Lot. There's a joint with Kodak Black too.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there was just a lot of good joints on that project, and it was like really just nice to see the synergy between Sway Lee and Slim Jimmy at that time.
Yeah, definitely. Another anniversary we wanted to shout out was Big Sean, Jay Electronica, and Kendrick Lamar's Control, which came out 13 years ago. I feel like this would have been maybe now I feel like people had the Control anniversary conversations with the Drake beef and the year
Mm-hmm.
after that. Still a dope verse from all of them. I feel like they also do really well on the song. It's interesting to hear it so many years later, just because there's not really many other tracks like it these
Mm-hmm.
days as far as like calling people out in that way and remix and like like collaborations of that magnitude, I guess. And finally, we cannot forget that the one and only Biggie Smalls' Juicy came out 32 years ago, which is wild. We were talking about like how we got into hip hop. Juicy was like probably one of the first five hip hop songs I heard, you know.
Mm.
And just such like what could you even say about Juicy, right? Like
Honestly, like I don't know, it's kind of a perfect jam. Like it has all those tones. I don't know, like Biggie's just amazing, and like I think that was maybe one of my first Biggie songs I've heard as well. And I'm like it's still to this day. I'm like I can't say anything wrong about it.
yeah, I think if I wanted to get if somebody asked me like where should I start with hip hop, I might point them to Juicy because it's
That's a
just
good starting point. That's a
it's
really good starting point.
such a legendary track, such an all-encompassing track,
Mm-hmm.
and cannot wait. Looking forward to continue to bump it and the rest of Biggie's catalog. Rest in peace
Rest in
for
peace.
forever. And with that being said, we want to thank you guys so much for tuning into this latest Hot New Hip Hop live stream. We had a blast with you guys. Aaron, as always, thank you so much for chopping
My
it up
guy,
with me, man.
my guy. It was a pleasure.
Hey, as always, we want to remind you guys to head to the Hot New Hip Hop website so you can rate the new songs and albums that have come out as of late. We would love to hear what you guys think about those. Also, check out some of our wonderful features pieces from Aaron and Erica as well. We've been talking about a lot of different things going on in hip hop these days, like the Tupac trial and other great features like that. So please make sure to go check those out. And yeah, we'll be doing these every Friday. So looking forward to the next one. Hope you all have an amazing weekend. And thank you all so much. Peace out.